ReShell.
Good evening and welcome to Warriors Talk with your girl, Lady ReShell, where we are always moving from awareness towards action. Tonight, I need you to share this broadcast out right now with every pregnant woman you know, every mother you know, every partner, grandmother, auntie, and because tonight's conversation is one that belongs in every household that is expecting new life. Our topic tonight is your birth, your voice, your choices, the power of doula support and maternal advocacy. And I have a very special guest that will be joining me who has made it her life's work to ensure that families, especially Black and Indigenous families, walk into the birthing room informed, empowered, and supported. We are going to talk about doulas, birth traumas, maternal health in America, and how you can fight for the birth experience you and your baby deserve. Welcome, everybody who is tuned in on Facebook, YouTube, and Intellectual Radio. If you are on social media right now, hit that share button, stay connected to Warriors Talk by typing in at Warriors Talk with the number one on all forms of social media. I'm so grateful for my sponsor tonight. We have Pastor Michael Richardson with the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emmanuel Kojic at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emmanuel Kojic-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson. And we're from the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
On the last episode of Warriors Talk, we tackled one of the most quietly damaging things in relationships, the silent relationship killer, unspoken expectations, and the conversation hits home for so many people. If you missed that episode, be kind, rewind, go over to YouTube under Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes that you may have missed. Why is this conversation tonight? Why does it matter? Why is it important? Because of the state of maternal health in America and some of the numbers that we cannot ignore. So, tonight we're going to talk about some of the statistics that are shockingly alarming as it relates to African American women when it comes to pregnancy, birth, and beyond. The United States has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in any high income country in the world. We also have a very high infant mortality rate, higher than most of our peer nations. And Black and Indigenous families face the highest rate of maternal and infant death in the country. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely than white counterparts to die from pregnancy related complication. 80% of those deaths are considered preventable. And nearly 45% of families report experiencing some sort of trauma birth. And that's why it is important tonight to bring on our guests that we have that is going to not only enlighten us, but educate us as it relates to your voice. And it matters in and out of the birthing room. So, Warriors, I am excited to introduce tonight our special guest. She is a certified birth doula and the owner of Rooted Wings LLC, where she supports families through one of life's most transformative journeys, With more than 20 years experience in education, leadership, and equity work, she brings both professional expertise and a deep commitment to human connection in every birth space she enters. She believes that every family deserves to feel seen, heard, and supported. As we welcome new life into the world, please help me welcome to Warriors Talk, Laurice Snyder. Hello.
Hello, Lady ReShell. Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation.
You are so welcome. It is so needed. I wish that I have 5 kids, and I wish I would have had a doula coming into all of those births. I feel like it would have went so much easier, and because I found myself with that fifth child, finally advocating for myself,
Mm,
knowing better. It took the to the fifth child to say, "Oh no, I don't want that. Oh no, I'm waiting too long. No, let's get this show on the road. I'm ready now."
hmm
And it shouldn't be that way, and that brings along a lot of the trauma that comes with birth. So I'm so happy that you're here to talk about this conversation, and I know that not just women, but their partners and the people that love them deserve to hear this conversation. And so I just want to jump into the conversation and have you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to birth doula in the first place. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as you said, so I am a certified birth doula, and we can talk a little bit about what that is. Is a lot of times people get that confused with other medical professionals like midwife and whatnot. But I currently live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I have 3 children of my own. I'm married, so I'm a wife as well. And really, what drew me to the birth work, and specifically the work in the role of a doula as an advocate, is really going through my own birth experience. So, when my husband and I were preparing for birth, we engaged in a community education class around birth with a doula. That was the first time I ever heard of a birth doula. And to your point, a lot of families don't even yet know about a birth doula, and partly for that is that most birth doulas are women. And when we think about our history about women in the workforce, doulas have actually been around for probably a couple hundred years. And it really is more of an ancient practice. It's a cultural practice. However, as a profession, it's relatively new. So, to exactly what you were sharing, the number one thing I get, especially people who have had children, who have grown children, are like, "Well, where were you when I was having my own children?" So that's partly why it feels like something new, although it really has been women supporting women, and a doula really is a woman's servant. So it's women supporting women in childbirth, and so now we think about that just expansive, supporting the whole family, partners included, and so what really came for me is when I was in this childbirth education class. And I was really learning a lot about my body. I was learning about what to expect. I was learning about questions I could ask my medical provider, places I could get information. And I had a really great first birth experience. I felt like I really understood what to expect. Is something that is one of the most unpredictable things that can happen. There's so much that can happen throughout your pregnancy and then also during the labor and delivery, in the postpartum. There's so many things that in some ways are unexplained, why some women get, for example, preeclampsia or gestational diabetes, but others women don't. And so with that, I felt like I had a very good grasp of the knowledge and what to expect, and really how to advocate for myself. And once I was really around my own friends. So I think at every big transition in your life, you kind of surround yourself, or you have people who are kind of going through similar, experiences, whether it be, from, grade school to middle school to maybe if you're going to college or you're graduating or whatever it is. Like, I feel like your circle of friends, you have those that are having those similar experiences. And so childbirth is really no different. And so as I was talking to my circle of friends who were also becoming new parents and were pregnant, I would share things about my own experience, and I learned pretty quickly that a lot of people did not have the same level of knowledge that I did. And yes, I took a class that was quite lengthy, and I did some reading. My background's in education via social work. So a lot of my friends were also educators. And I just kept thinking, if they don't know this information, who does? And in my work around education, I really have understood and have worked deeply to give children and families access to education because an educational system was not designed for all in mind. And what I quickly realized is neither is our healthcare system. And in such a wealthy country, with a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise, it shouldn't be that way. And so the knowledge that women and families and expecting families need to have going into the birth space is not being given to them. Yes, it's available if they go looking for it, but how do you go looking for information you don't even know exists? So that's really what kind of drew me into becoming a birth doula. And so that I was, my oldest is 12. And so that was, 13 years ago. And it kept coming back like, I should do this. I was in education and I'm like, oh, I should do this, as a new profession. And it just kept tapping me and tapping me. And then just a little over a year ago, it really came full circle into being able to make a full career transition. And at this point, I really have been a doula. Before I was a doula, I was helping a lot of families, answering questions, providing information, giving resources, both during pregnancy, not as much in the maybe like attending births as I do now, but definitely in postpartum, helping families if they were nursing and breastfeeding, all of the newborn care, the transition to having a new life at home. And so I really found myself as maybe an informal doula for the last 12 years, and now I've been able to make it as a official, as a professional doula.
Is that the LLC that you started with the Rooted Wings? Is that part of the new transition of you being a doula?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So the other role that I have right now is I have been for probably about the last 20 years doing leadership consulting around just human centeredness. So yes, as a new leader, you're giving birth to a new role and identity, and you have people in your care, and that is parallel with the birth experience. So I kind of serve in two maybe different capacities, but really with the same underpinning around being seen, being valued, being heard, and really taking care of those in your care. So that is what both of those fall under my business.
So if you had to maybe tell someone what the benefits of doula support is, how would you sum it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll just start by first defining a doula. So a doula is a trained professional that actually is not medical. So it's a trained professional that is there to support expecting families during pregnancy, through labor and delivery, and then also postpartum. And so it's providing physical support and guidance, it's providing emotional support and guidance, and really that reassurance that families, whatever their desired birth preferences are, that they are working toward and that everybody knows that that's what the goal is for this family. One of the things that is very surprising to people is that when you, especially if you are in a hospital setting, you have choice. And so sometimes options aren't presented to you as options, they're presented as like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. And families don't know that that's really, they're presenting an option, but they don't always present it that way. And so you can say no, or you can decline, or you can ask for more information before you make a decision. And so that last big piece around a doula is advocacy. And so it's really extending the voice of the family that's expecting. And so I don't speak for anyone. I don't tell anyone what to do. I provide resources and access to the information that they need to make an informed consent, an informed decision based on what's going to be best for themselves and for their families. So the benefits really come by having someone who has a presence to really understand what's happening in the medical space. So I'm part of the care team. I complement, the medical provider, which may be an OB doctor or maybe a midwife. It could be in a hospital setting. It could be in a birth center, and or it could be at home. So I really support as a doula in any of those spaces. The client hires me, so I work for the client. I don't work for the hospital setting or for a provider. And so the benefit is that I'm going to be there for the whole thing. So through, shift changes, if you have, a different provider, whoever's on call, if you have nurses that are changing shifts, if you want to labor early at home, I'm there, either physically there, or I might be coaching you via the phone, depending on, we kind of work it out as what clients prefer. And so I am there to guide you, as I say, like really every step of the way. If you have complications, if you are unsure about something that's being presented, I'm there to help make sure that you, again, have the information that you deserve and it's your right to have before you make a decision. And then in labor and delivery, I generally join clients at about the time they're in active labor. And so we work together. I kind of say, when you need me, I'm going to be there. So for different clients, it's a little bit different. Some are more comfortable having me a little bit later into their labor. Some want me there a little bit earlier. It also depends if it's their first pregnancy or a subsequent pregnancy, because I support someone's first one or their fifth one or their 10th one. And so I'm there. I provide comfort measures, pain management. So we talk about all the pain management options, and I'm there to help whatever it is that the laboring person needs to have a safe delivery for both them and for baby. Another role that I have is also helping the partner. So if there's a partner that's there as well, I want them to be as involved as they want to be. So if it's hands-on support, I'm teaching them how to provide, whether it be like hip squeezes, which is something that's very common, or back massage, or get into positions that are going to be most ideal for mama to have her baby. So there's a lot of anatomy that goes in, and gravity that goes into understanding how your body works. And so I'm there to help leverage the most advantageous way for you to give birth in the easiest way and the most conducive to, again, that healthy outcome that we all hope for. And then in the postpartum period, a benefit is I'm checking in with you. I'm there in those very early, intimate moments where you're not sure what's happening. I'm helping to translate with the medical providers if they're giving or saying things that you don't understand. And I'm helping with, if you choose to breastfeed, I'm helping with kind of the first latch and making sure you feel you have all the knowledge and comfort, the ability to be able to nurse in a comfortable way. And then a big part of my practice is really around perinatal mood disorders. So my background's actually in social work, and so this is something that we don't talk about enough as a country. Most people only have heard of postpartum depression, but there's a big range of perinatal mood disorders. Our bodies go through just this miraculous change, which affects all of our hormones. And so to be there to help guide a family, to kind of talk about what's normal, and or when is it time to reach out and contact a trained professional to help. I'm there to, again, kind of check in and have those conversations, make sure partners are communicating, setting up routines or communication systems that's going to work for their family. So the benefits are pretty incredible when you really think about the opportunity to have someone walk you through from the time you're first pregnant or whenever you would hire a doula, through labor and delivery, and then through the postpartum period.
That's some good information. Thank you. Jasmine says, so she was so glad you were there the entire time.
Yes, that was it was a blessing to be there for someone like Jasmine, who wasn't having her voice heard. And so I was there to make sure that her voice was being heard and they were listening to what she needed, because that sadly is, it happens all too much where providers, they go on what they're most comfortable doing. They're not actually listening. And so to be there to remind providers, this is what your patient said. This is what's important to them. Let's try this, and really be able to extend and amplify their voice.
And something that stuck out to me is you mentioned the word consent. I mean, at
Yes.
that moment, you're under a lot of stress, just focusing on having, a healthy birth and making sure that, you're not running into any complications. And then you're being thrown these questions of, hey, you need to do this, you need to make this decision right away. So I feel like it's good to have a doula present because most of the information you guys will go over ahead of time anyway to see what it is that they want and they don't want. And you have
Yes.
somebody sitting right there that will be able to help them stay focused on what it is that the mother wants because she may not even be able to communicate it at that time.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And so a big part of that, as you just said, is happening in the pre-work. So I generally do 2 prenatals, maybe more appointments, depending on the family and what they need, to talk over all the birth preferences and all the what ifs. And so what if scenarios, what if it doesn't go as planned? What's kind of plan B, plan C, plan Z? We would talk through all of that. So if it happens in the birth room and it doesn't go as expected, we've already talked through it, and then families aren't making game time decisions, as you just said, like under a lot of stress in an unfamiliar place with maybe unfamiliar providers. And so one of the biggest things that I can do as a doula is I say slow down the room. And so one, it's just making sure that the birth preferences are in someone's chart, are talked about at the time of admission, which is generally when they're just getting into active labor. And I always have a copy so that if we are getting off track, it's like, it's right here. This is what we talked about. And so I slow down the birth room by always saying, do you need more time or more information if a decision does need to be made, and helping clients advocate to say, can I just take a moment? Can you step out of the room? Whatever it might be, so that they can just get their head wrapped around maybe what the next thing that might be happening. And so it really is making sure that, yeah, their voice is, I mean, they are essential. It is their care. And so with that, sometimes consent feels like when you get admitted to the hospital or upon registration, you fill out a consent form, and that really isn't consent. Yes, it's consent in a way of these are the things that might happen, but at every time's the next either decision, or if there's an intervention to happen, a medication to be given, and consent is a conversation, and that's what should be presented to a client, to a patient. And so I really want to make sure that my clients understand, again, what their options are, what are the risks, what are the benefits, what can they wait, do they have time, what are the alternatives, all of that before they make that decision. And I'm always thinking a step ahead. So sometimes it's easy to get way out in front and think, okay, you're thinking worst case scenario. And I kind of slow it down and say, this is the decision that needs to be made at this time. And so what, here are the, maybe if it's 2 options or 3 options. And with that, I've had clients that, maybe the provider really is wanting them to get an epidural or to take Pitocin, which is something to help speed up labor contractions. And so, we say, okay, what other options do we have? And have we exhausted all the options if that's something that the client didn't want, if they didn't want an epidural. And if they did want an epidural, then that's great. Then we go from there. But there's things like that sometimes providers will go on what they know or what they expect to be or what assumption that they have. And so I'm there to, make sure that their care is personalized and individual to the patient that they have in front of them.
I like that, as it should be, as it should.
Absolutely.
According to research on 2025, it found that doula support reduces cesarean rates, preterm labor duration, and pain, while significantly improving breastfeeding initiatives and recipients of doula care also show low rates of postpartum and depression and a higher APSCAR score for
Yeah.
newborns. And they said that that's no small thing because it's the difference between a healthy start and a difficult one.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that really is having someone again in your corner. Like I am there to back my patient, whatever, or back my client, whatever they want. It's not about what I want. And my clients rarely know how my births went, which interventions or not I use, or anything, because that's irrelevant to their care. I'm there to help them achieve the desired outcome that they want and the preferences that they have. And so when you have someone that's in your corner, for example, when you're looking and providers are coming in, they're looking at, yes, data that's happening in the birth room, they might be making, a quick decision because they're kind of maybe popping in and popping out. They're looking at something and say, okay, this we might need to go to a C-section, and they haven't been there to kind of build up necessarily. And yes, they're being, informed by the nurses. And I say all of this, then not saying that providers have malintent. There's an absolute role for any provider, and they also have usually a lot of patients. They're not there for the kind of the full duration. They're using different data points again to the best of their knowledge. So this isn't to say that anyone's making poor decisions. It's just that sometimes that's not what the client isn't being heard in all of that, because they're making decisions based on what does the monitor say? What does whether it be like a test they're having done or a lab result, and they're not hearing actually what the client is saying, And so I think about the person that comes to my mind, is Serena Williams. Like, she is someone who is very famous. She's someone who's very educated. And I don't know if most people know, but she almost died after childbirth, not being listened to. And so I think about that is like having someone, I don't know if she had a doula or not, but having someone to really listen, to say, wait, let's pause for a minute, or read your client. Like, I'm there, again, I've gotten to know them very well. I kind of can know, and one of the questions I ask, for example, if a client is their preference is not to have medical pain management, so they don't maybe want an epidural or a narcotic. And sometimes that changes in birth, and that's okay. Everything is flexible. I want to know, what are your top priorities and how can we achieve that? And so one of the questions I ask is, when you're in the thick of it, you might say or do things that you don't necessarily really mean. And so how will I know if you mean it, or if you are just saying it because at the right now, this seems like it's too hard to get through this contraction or whatnot. And I had one of my clients say, I will look you dead in the face and I will say, I need this. And she did. I mean, she said it before, but then I knew that was the moment that she really needed kind of the next intervention. And so it really is being able to advocate in that way. And that does reduce, kind of premature decisions for cesareans. I think one of the things that I know about medical providers is having that control before it gets out of control is important. And so sometimes those decisions are made because we don't know what might happen. And so again, they're thinking, if we could if we could get this baby out now, then we can control more of the situation. And that's not what all people want. Some do. Some choose to have an elective C-section. Some choose to have a scheduled induction because they want to know exactly when their baby's going to be born. And I'm here to support it all. I just want to make sure that what the client wants and what the provider's, approach is, that matches. And so it really is helping. Also, one of the things that people don't know, because we are used to seeing birth on, TV or whatnot, if you haven't had that experience yourself, but actually giving birth on your back is the worst position for you to actually give birth. And it really came that way because it is easiest for providers. And so now for some people, that is their most comfortable. They want to give birth on their back, and that's great. I'm here to support that. And there's so many other ways that you can actually use gravity and your anatomy to help create room in your pelvis to help get baby down, or babies if you have multiple, in a quicker, more efficient fashion. And so I think that's part of the knowledge that we don't know. We just see birth being done on your back on TV. We see the water break, bam, birth happens. It's intense for a couple minutes and that's it. And that's not really how birth really happens. So that's what I'm here to help provide, again, the education. What's happening to your body? And then how can I, best advocate in the way that is going to be your desired birth experience.
Yes, absolutely. It's important for them to have all the information they can going into that delivery room before and beyond. And some, you don't get that. You in your doctor's office, they're not going over every detail with you or what's about to happen. Like you're not just gonna, they don't have time to take you through all of that. So it's important for you to seek out other avenues. And so my question would be, for families who want a doula but don't know where to start, like how would they find one and what should they look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of my, I guess, my journey in this birth space is to really make sure that every family who wants to have a doula has access to a doula. So there are only about half the states right now, actually, when it comes to state insurance, actually cover doula care. So, for example, Wisconsin is not one of them right now. So, if you access state insurance, you don't have access to doula care through your insurance. So, that's a big barrier for families to be able to get access to a doula. So, most doulas are private businesses. So like I'm just self-employed, I'm a private business. And so it's families paying out of pocket. And anywhere really it ranges. It really depends on your area. I think most doulas for what I just described would kind of be full birth support range from maybe from about $800 to probably $3,000 across the United States. So that varies from region to region, and it really, you have to kind of look up what is maybe the I guess average rate in your area. But the first thing I would say is make sure you interview multiple doulas. So there are a few platforms. There's doulamatch.com, Meet Your Doula, Born Beer are all like websites that you can go to if you're expecting, and you can find more than doulas. You can find like postpartum doulas, which we didn't quite yet talk about, but I will in a moment. You can find midwives, you can find sleep consultants, you can find really kind of everyone that would be caring for a newborn through or caring for pregnancy, labor and delivery, postpartum, and then newborn. So there's something called newborn care specialist. So these are all different kind of roles that people have that you can certainly hire. So that would be one thing, is just to go and do kind of you could just do a Google search too, just like a birth doula in my area. And I'm certified through Doula, which is Doulas of North America. It's the largest certifying doula organization. And so there is a directory on dona.org as well. All the places that I just mentioned, you can find me as well. You can just kind of search doula, and they usually do like a geographic search too. You'll kind of find to wherever you're located to see the doulas that are by you. But I always say, interview multiple doulas, because everyone does dueling a little. I don't know if dueling's a word, but I've made it a word. Everyone does dueling a little bit different, because we all have different expertise. We all have different experiences. Like I said, something for me that is really center to my practice is really around those perinatal mood disorders. And that's not maybe an area that everyone is focused on. I also really focus on the partner as well, because that is really important to support the family unit. And so interview, several doulas if you are able to. Dona.org actually has a great interviewing guide for parents. So it's just a free download. If you just search interviewing guide for doulas, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But just questions that you may not have yet considered, things that you're kind of wondering about. And one of the things is that, well, not one of the things, I would say the most important thing is that you really connect with your doula. Like, you are going to be sharing some very intimate time when you're at maybe your most vulnerable. So you need to have someone who really connects with you, that you feel safe with, that you feel heard by, and that they really understand the things that are important to you. And so I'm not going to be everyone's doula, and not everyone's going to be my client. It really has to be a good match. Personally, I don't take it personal, because I bring the energy that I bring, and that doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I say right in my interview, if I'm not your person, please don't hire me. I will help you find someone that's a good match for you, because the worst thing that we could do is have someone that you don't really want there. That's not going to help their birth experience and help them achieve, an optimal birth outcome. So that's really how you go about looking for a doula, interviewing a doula. Those interviews typically are virtual, and there are some virtual doulas too that actually don't provide physical support. They just provide virtual support. And so then you just work out a contract with your doula individually. Sometimes you can be reimbursed through, like, if you have flexible spending accounts, or HRAs, or other, like, health, that's a health savings account. Sometimes you can be reimbursed, and some doulas do take insurance. So I don't yet take insurance, but I do have a national provider number so that families can get reimbursed through FSAs and HRAs. But each insurance company is something you have to go through to get certified through them. And there's a lot of insurance companies. So I feel like, for me, we are not at a place that all families have access to a doula at this moment, but that is absolutely a motivation for me, because I really don't feel like any family should have to go without having a voice in their corner that is going to ensure that they are having the best care possible.
Awesome. My Leah says thank you for this information.
Mm.
It's important, especially for those who are thinking about becoming a mom as well, knowing that they have options, that they can have some additional support in the room with them and throughout their pregnancy. But
Yeah.
you mentioned the postpartum, and I didn't want to skip over it. Why is it important for the doula to be there beyond you giving birth?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, it is such a major transition when you are bringing a new life, into this world. And again, we don't have access to all the information. Yes, we have. I mean, I guess you do have access to the whole World Wide Web, but yet it almost has no information, because there's too much out there. And the last thing expecting families have time or energy for is to be searching and searching and searching, and not even know if the information is correct, if it's reliable, a reliable source, again, in that accuracy. So I think when you want, or not necessarily when you want, but when you are going into that postpartum period, there's a lot of things that you're not thinking about. And so a doula is really there to make sure that you think about some of those things. So some of the things I think about is, who are you going to call when you need something, or when you think about who can be a resource? You need someone to, walk your dogs, or drop off a meal, or wash your dishes. Who are you going to call to do those things? I think about, again, those perinatal mood disorders. When how do you start the conversation when maybe you're struggling? And so, and working in that postpartum period, I'm able to see if there's a change, or if something's of concern. Maybe, for one day, you're not showering because you've been up all night, you're sleeping during the day. But now we're at 3 days. I might say, I've noticed that, you're not taking care of yourself. Like, how are you doing? Where is most people, they're not going to see that or see the change. And so that's why in that postpartum period, having a doula is really important. And then also just being able to care for your newborn. There's a lot that goes into that as well. And there's a lot of questions. Like, I always think, is this normal? Biggest question. So I can say, like, this looks normal. Here's information about that. Or I always will refer back to your pediatrician or to your doctor if there's something. I am not a medical provider, but I'm here to listen to you and hear your concern, and make sure, again, that your voice is elevated in that postpartum period. It's you're bringing new life, you're establishing a new identity as a mom or as a family or as a, in addition to another, if you have other children. And so in that postpartum period, there is just so much that happens, and to have someone who can text you just to check in or can call you is so important. And then there are postpartum doulas that generally support, yes, right after birth, but then kind of into that full first year of that postpartum period. So as a birth doula, I'm usually there for about the first 6 weeks. But someone can hire someone who's like a trained postpartum doula that may or may not attend your birth if they're a birth doula, but they will be there. They might do overnight shifts to be there to help with, again, with if you're breastfeeding or just nourishment in general, to help families get sleep, to help transition, with other siblings. And so there is something, there's another type of doula called a postpartum doula. And there's bereavement doulas as well. There's doulas who are specialized to work with families that have experienced loss or are expecting to experience loss in the perinatal time period. And so that's also really important.
Wow, some good information. Jasmine says, "Thank you, Laurice. I really appreciate you sharing this information. There's a lot of information that you shared that women don't know. Don't know." And I would say the first time I heard the word doula, it may have been a year ago. And I'm like, well, what is that? Like, what is a doula? So, I mean, that was the first time that I heard about it. If I've heard about it earlier, I probably would have had one all 5 pregnancies. I remember going to the Lamaze class for my first pregnancy to kind of, figure out what's going to happen with this pregnancy, what to expect. But they definitely don't go into detail like the doulas do. And they're definitely not going to be in the room with you when you're giving birth either. So
Hmm.
on with that. So I feel like it's really important that everybody knows what it is, and then they can make an informed decision to see if this is right for them and their family. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I really appreciate this information.
Well, and I think a lot of times too, a doula is confused with a midwife. So a midwife is a medical professional. A lot of times people know doula or midwives as giving birth at home, but there are midwives that also give birth in a hospital setting. I actually had a team of midwives that I worked with for my pregnancies and my births experiences. But a lot of times people think, oh, well, if I have a midwife, do I need a doula? And it's like the midwife and the doula have different responsibilities. So yes, to have a kind of a complete birth team, having a doula as part of your midwifery care is important. And also partners. A lot of times people think doula is like, oh, I have a partner, or my husband, or my boyfriend, whoever's going to be there. And having a doula doesn't replace the partner. Again, doula complements the partner, and I want the partner to be as involved as they want to be. And so I'm helping them so they know what to do, so they feel confident. I'm also a translator. Like sometimes, she might say, I want this, and we're going to get it to her. And then she's going to say, why'd you bring me this? I don't want this. And so I help like say that's going to be expected. And I help kind of, again, kind of translate that. And the amount of moms that have said to me, I'm so sorry for what I said. It's like, I'm here. This is what I signed up for. Again, I know what to expect. And so it's not something that I am, offended by, but it's hard to watch your loved one, give birth or be in pain or be uncomfortable, and you can't, there's nothing that you're doing that's providing comfort. And so that's really hard. So I do talk to partners about that as well. But serving in that translator role of like, this is what she's not saying this, but this is what she means, is something that I do quite a bit.
If you are just tuning in, we are live on Intellectual Radio with Laurice Snyder, talking about your birth, your voice, your choices, the power of doula support, and maternal advocacy. One of the things that I wanted to get into before we wrap up is talking about some of the facts and myths that come along with what a doula is, what a doula does, and you can let us know what's a myth, what's a fact. Um,
All right.
The first one is doulas only support home births.
Yeah, so that's not true. The majority of births I actually do are in a hospital setting, but doulas support in hospital settings, in birth centers as well. So that's kind of like a maybe not a hybrid, but a combination. Generally, a smaller setting, but not in a hospital, full hospital. And then I also support in home births. Not all doulas support in all settings, but the majority of them do. So that would be a myth.
Awesome. And you hit on this one already, but I want to bring a different aspect to it. Was a doula replaces your spouse or your partner when you're in a labor and delivery? Um, does that doula count as one of your people that are there? Like you only have so many people in that room, and is that going to cancel out that spouse being there or another person being there?
Well, you hit on on a prickly topic. So it depends. It really depends on the medical center. So generally, what you're talking about is if you're in a hospital setting that has policies and whatnot around the number of visitors and whatnot. So in the doula world, this is something that we're really trying to change because the doula should not count as one of the support people by the client or the patient, and really should be seen as part of, again, that full like medical team. I know I said we're not a medical provider, but you're part of the team that is taking to care for your client. So in some settings, there's still a little bit of a rub with if the doula counts or not. One of the things that I do when I'm working with a client, if they're delivering at a hospital, generally it's hospitals because birth centers are generally very accommodating. Of course, if you're doing a home birth, it's your own home. But if I have a client who's delivering at a location that I'm not familiar with, I actually go and do my own hospital tour and I ask those types of questions. And then also, if the client is if they were to need a C-section, because that's where it gets the most tricky, is because operating rooms are generally, pretty small, and there's a lot of people in there. And so some are very accommodating. They're really kind of pro doula, and they understand that the doula is not there to get in anyone's way and really support the client. There's a lot that a doula can do during a C-section that people don't even realize, because sometimes that is, I don't know if that's on your list, but that is like another myth that like, if I have a C-section, I don't need a doula, or I have to have a repeat C-section. But there's a lot that doulas can do to support in that way. And so, this one, it is not, it shouldn't, although in some settings, I am aware that that still is kind of the practice. And I've heard, I've not experienced this myself, but I've heard that clients have had to choose, or if they wanted, it's generally not their spouse or partner. It's generally if they want like a lot, it's like their mom or another friend and their spouse and a doula. So but I've not yet had that actual decision with a client, but I've heard that has happened in some places. So
Well, good to know. Fact or myth? Doulas are only for people who want unmedicated births.
all right, that's a very big myth. So doulas are there, as I, have kind of described, to help in so many ways. And sometimes people think if they, want a medicated birth, if they generally, it's an epidural, then they don't need anything. And again, there's so many different positions that can help with labor and delivery, and with or without an epidural. There's so many things that you can still do, and there's still so much support that's needed. And so doulas, again, my role is to advocate for what you want. So if you want a medicated birth, great. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to work with. And then we're going to talk through what that looks like. If you want an unmedicated birth, then let's talk about what that looks like. And that means different preparation as well. And if you are unsure, let's talk about the things that are going to be most important to help you make a decision, so that we can go in with at least a plan A, and then talk about what some of the other things that you might have to decide later on. But that's a big myth.
And then the last one is a fact or a myth. Doulas are a luxury for wealthy families.
Yeah, you are on the Mythbusters today because yeah, that really is a myth. It is not a luxury. I think that in practice right now, because we don't have healthcare system that works for all, it might feel that way because it is in most communities left to families to hire a doula privately and out of pocket. So I think in the way that it is in practice, it certainly might feel that way. But birth doulas are for everyone. And for me, I really want to support families that almost have the least amount of access to the best care in communities that they don't maybe have access to because it is so important. And it can be, I mean, it is transformational. And it can, for some, as you were giving some of the earlier research around maternal mortality, infant mortality, it can be life or death. And so this really should be part of a standard care of practice and not at all a luxury. And so, as I'm building my practice, one of the things that I'm doing, I'm not yet at a place to be able to offer a sliding fee scale or pro bono services, as this is my full time practice. I want to get to that place, but one of the things that I'm doing right now to make sure that families do have access to the knowledge and information is I'm offering community education classes around birth choices around. I'm doing one coming up around returning to work and or school while breastfeeding. So those are free classes that anyone in the community can access so that they're getting the knowledge and information even if they're not able yet to have a doula at their bedside.
Awesome. It's a nice way to give back. As it relates to birth trauma and doulas and how they can impact families, this statistic is alarming. Nearly 45% of families report experiencing some form of birth trauma.
Yes. Yeah, that is alarming. It is, and it's a growing body of research. We weren't gathering this kind of information, for that long to have, a history of understanding how trauma affects the birth experience. And going back to things that we've been talking about, when individuals feel like they don't have control of their situation and they feel like things are being done to them and not with their consent, when they feel like they don't understand what's happening. When we think about any other traumatic experience, I mean, sometimes we talk about, natural disasters or, things that are just like big and grand, but you think about how that impacts people and why they experience trauma. Birth is just like that. So when you don't have agency where you actually can again communicate the things that are important to you. You're having a baby, you're in the middle of labor and you feel like things are being done to you. That's where we get these high numbers of people experiencing birth trauma. And the more that we're talking about it, the more people are coming forward to say, that was my experience too. And so having a doula can really, again, give you that sense of agency to really be seen and heard for what's happening. And I am no magic, no miracle worker. I can't make up or invent, certain birth outcomes. I don't have control over that, but I can make you feel supported and I can make you feel seen and I can hear and be a listening ear for your concerns and make sure that again your voice is being amplified. And so when it comes to birth trauma, that really is something that is can be very, I would say, preventable, but it really can be when we give people agency and really hear what they're saying. And when something's wrong, they know their bodies. That might not be what's on the chart, that might not be what's on the monitor, but they know their bodies and they know something's wrong. And so that's what I'm here to, again, bring forward to make sure that they're getting the best care possible. And you can have a birth that on paper looks like textbook birth. If you were about to read about how a birth went, and someone can walk away with the most traumatizing experience. And you can have really the opposite. You can have a birth that was very complicated. You can have, lots of things happening, and you can have a family that feels so supported in that experience. So it really is about feeling heard and feeling supported. And I have a client right now that I'm working with in a very tricky situation will deliver way earlier than intended based on her health condition. And I can't change that for her, but I can make sure that I'm checking in and that I know that this is scary. And I know that this is something that is, she has to grieve. She had this birth that she thought was going to happen. And it's more and more looking like that's not going to happen. And so she has to grieve that. And I can be there. I can be a shoulder to cry on. I can hear her concerns. I can help her formulate questions for her provider, and then ultimately be there for that experience. And so that birth trauma piece is so critical, because that, and I think you said it in an earlier comment, but that really sets you up for life. Like, you are establishing, this is day one of this new life for baby or babies, new life for you, whether it's a first time parent or, a 10-time parent. It's still new. You're bringing a new life in. And so the better that we can set you up for feeling supported and getting your feet grounded, that's where I want to be. That's what is important for the rest of your life as a client, and then you're setting your child up for success.
Awesome. Can you just give us some words of wisdom as it relates to your birth, your choice, your voice?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, just that you deserve to be heard. You deserve to have the care of incredible dignity, of incredible compassion, and worth. Like, it is. I don't want people to think that it's an inconvenience. Like, this is your life, and so you really do. You have the right, and you definitely deserve to be cared for with the utmost respect and compassion. And so please consider, if it's not hiring a doula, like, who is part of your birth team that can help you advocate in the way that you should have someone advocate for you. And then also just, there's a lot of information out there, but seek knowledge, seek information. Again, that's going to help you make the best decisions. And if you don't know where information is, please reach out to me. I'm happy to point you wherever you are across the United States. I am happy to help you find a resource so that you do feel supported. And lastly, you're not alone in all the feelings and the range of emotions that come along with expecting and bringing a new life in. Whatever those are, you're not alone. And so someone is here for you, and we all want you to be able to thrive in this space. And so that would be my words of wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you just sharing your knowledge that you have with us, and giving families who want to have a child, who want to have a positive experience that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. So thank you for what you do and for the information that you shared. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much again for inviting this I believe, important conversation. And I hope anyone that is watching is sharing this with someone that they know and that they love, because it really can make an incredible difference for their experience.
Awesome. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Bye now.
This conversation tonight was not just about birth. Tonight, it was about power. It was about the power of information, the power of having someone in your corner who knows this space, the power of walking into that delivery room and knowing your rights and your options and knowing that your voice matters. So we appreciate the information that Laurice gave us tonight, and I hope that you carry it with you. Know that your strength is not measured by how much you carry alone. It's about knowing to share the load. And those are her words, not mine. So thank you so much for tuning in to Warriors Talk tonight, live on Intellectual Radio. Join me next Monday right here at 6 p.m. As always, Warriors Talk is changing lives, one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on intellectualradio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.